How you doing?
Something went down the wrong pipe.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
What are you eating?
Something spicy.
Ah, very nice. Oh, there's a cool background.
Yeah, I don't drink. It's just a joke.
So any particular reason why you don't drink anymore? Or I mean,
No, you said anymore like I used to. Now I'm just, in the 60s, I did a few things and then I just am not interested in doing anything.
yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about that too. Like when you drink too much or do any kind of drugs or weed or what have you, that feeling of losing control isn't always a great feeling to have.
And yet people love to smoke pot.
Yeah, and you think about it too, coming up through the 60s and a lot of the people that you admire, like the Beatles and all that, heavily used drugs to plug into their creativity and all that, can expand their minds. And they were doing shrooms and acid and all kinds of fun stuff. So you've never dabbled? Yeah, Coke.
I dabbled and I didn't not as much as my friends. I was the one who, I guess you'd call it a designated driver. Like I would do the funny stuff while they were tripping to make them laugh. And I'd remember things that happened, things like that. But I was very conservative my whole life.
So you remember the 60s?
That's funny. I did a few things, in college. When you see what the kids are doing today, in a good way, like people's children, they're on this team and that team and they're winning awards and I say, gosh, at 24, your daughter's more mature than I was at,
The kids are learning so much more these days. I mean, if you look at the phone, what that has evolved into, right? Nowadays it's a computer in your hand, and these kids today can learn anything. All they gotta do is talk into their phone if they want to find out about something. There's no more thinking or research. Like you were just at a library today, right?
Yeah, to print out my Elton John tickets. I'm still a 60s person. Yeah. But they're downloaded. So, they're on your phone. So I went for nothing.
Nowadays, you can't even print out your tickets. Everything's got to be on your phone.
I went for that reason. So that was another thing that's funny you brought it up. But what I want to say about what I meant about the kids today is their accomplishments. Like, my daughter has a double major, physics and medicine, you know what I mean? Like ridiculous. When after college, every day I commuted. After my classes, I'd go to this guy's house in Brownsville or near my college, and we watched like TV and smoked pot and made jokes. And when I think back to that, I did that. Wow. When other kids studying marketing and going to work during the day and they had to go to college at night and making ends meet, and I was just this bratty kid.
Those kids are still doing that though. They're still hanging at each other's houses and smoking pot and stuff like that, but they just have more access to information than we ever had. Like I said, you can just Google anything and you could find it out, and there's just so many sources of information, whether it's on social media, just on the web, podcasts, what have you. The news is now 24-hour cycles. So there's just information coming at you 24/7 where, and it's crazy how fast that technology came, because back in the day, and that's not that long ago. If you think about it, like 40, 50 years is not that long ago for the evolution to where we are now, How often do you go to the library? What does it look like these days?
Oh, it's really cool. I live in Queens. It's beautiful to go to the library. They have newspapers, magazines, computers, printers, and they, somehow it's nicer than my computer. Like it's quicker, and I don't know how to use my printer. That's the problem. I have a printer. I have 4 cartridges, and I just need someone to come over and fix it. And I have a computer guy. So I help him out in ways and he helps me. So I have no excuse, except my house is messy. Before he comes over, I want him to be able to step from the door to the printer.
It's funny because like I work in, I'm a editor, video editor. It's what I do for a living, but still some technology, like the simplest things, like setting up the printer is such a hassle. But I think I figured it out for me. It's like all on an app now. Mine's a wireless printer,
Wow. Some people like you are just born to figure it out. Like Bruce Lipsky's my good friend. He figures things out all the time.
Bruce Lipsky, funny guy. I'm a fan of Bruce. He's been doing it, and for a while now. But and he was on the show too. Both of you have been on my Put Up,
The
Shut Up, and
contest,
Stand
but
Up.
he was going to do this show and it was postponed. So he was looking forward to coming back.
I'm definitely going to get him on the DONversations as well. It's just tough to nail down times these days, but yeah, I'm glad we worked this one out. And
Yes, thank you for having me.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, you've been doing comedy for a while now. You're mainly a joke writer before being the stand-up.
Now I'll tell you if you want to hear the story.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so in the 1978, I moved from New York to San Francisco, and I was walking down the street one day, and this barker at the comedy club near my house, I didn't know anything about this. This was not on my radar at all. He was like wearing a leisure suit. He had greasy hair, and he went, comedy, 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 come to the comedy club, a real barker. So for some reason, I walked in. He said, stand on the stage and look around. And Robin Williams used to go there. He had just been picked up for Mork and Mindy, but he had an improv group. So next thing you know, the guy signed me up to write jokes, send them to famous people like he did. He showed me how. And then he enrolled me in an improv class, and Robin's friends who were in his improv group taught the class. And then I took a stand-up. So that's how I got into it in the 80s. But as much as I say I didn't take it seriously, when I think back, I used to go to open mics pretty often. And a lot of the people who were playing those clubs, one day it seemed, Don, they all got taken by a scout. And it was Rob Schneider, Dana Carvey. Robin already had made at Mork and Mindy just then.
Bobby Slayton too, right? Was part of that group.
Used to be there. Oh, you could tell me.
Yeah, well, I just know because of you talking about the Holy City Zoo? Yeah, I that club is so important, not only to San Francisco comedy or the Bay Area comedy, but it's very important to the history of comedy, and so many great comedians. It's a very small club, only like 50 people.
Yeah, it's narrow. That's why when he said, stand on this and look out, it's narrow, it's small. And yeah, you said the people who used to be there, and I'm glad you appreciate that club. That's where I used to go to listen to comics.
Wow, that's cool.
And we do open mic, and when Robin was doing he was part of the court case of John Belushi's trial. So right. He would drive, he was going to court, and then on his way home, he'd stop at the club. So the club guy, the greasy, he was known like that. He died, but some people call him greasy, but he, say I was greasy.
Right, yeah.
And he lived upstairs, he took a shower at my apartment, and we had a deal. He'd borrow my vacuum cleaner, and he'd tell me when Robin was dropping in.
Nice.
So he would wheel my vacuum cleaner down a public street, concrete and everything, and he'd use the vacuum there at the Holy City Zoo. So I'm glad you appreciate that club. And I friended all the people who used to be there, and
yeah, Will Durst was there a lot too. Dana Carvey, I think Paula Poundstone, right? A lot of really great comics of that 80s boom really kind of generated. And I think, is that the club with Steve? No, that's not the one with Steve Martin developed the jerk persona. That was another club. I think the Other Cafe it was called.
Oh yeah, I went there for Mike's. That's so funny you knew so much of that. I didn't even know Steve Martin was here. I mean, that's where I was. But another funny thing was Paul Poundstone played this other club, which you probably heard of, Tom Sawyer's Club, called the oh my God, I'm going to forget the name now, on Chestnut Street. Anyway, she came in, and the open mic is used to start at 2 a.m. Could you imagine on a weeknight when you're going to work? 2 a.m. Whereas now the open micers are on early.
Right, yeah.
At that club, we were on after, so Paul Poundstone did a joke about riboflavin. I'll never forget that. It's like, don't you just love riboflavin? No, I never thought about it. But we'd go on at 2 a.m. and
but that's cool that
go ahead.
It's very cool that you were performing and doing comedy and kind of in the mix at that time, and around
clearly
all
an
those.
open micer. I was
Yeah,
clearly an open micer,
right.
though.
But they all kind of were then. I mean, they were all on the rise. I mean, but like with even Robin Williams, he was famous already. I think Mork and Mindy was just popping, but he wasn't the Robin that he became. He wasn't this,
But he was
superstar.
there because he was taken by the scouts and he was already on Mark and Mindy just then. But before that, I saw him do improv with his group. Right before that, he did improv. It was called Papaya Juice, but if you Google it, you don't see Papaya Juice, but that was the name. And Will Durst's wife, Deb Durst, she had
Yeah, Debbie
improv
Durst.
group.
Yeah.
And that's why when now they're raising money for years for him to recover, and I always give, because he, even later on, I wrote to him and said, do you need any jokes? And he'd say, what do you got?
Yeah.
They're very nice.
He's a great guy, and God bless him. He had a stroke recently, so he's recovering from that. So people could help out. I think there's a link, GoFundMe or something for him for his medical bills and stuff. But Will Durst, if you don't know, he's like a staple of the San Francisco comedy scene. He's also a hilarious political comedian. He's one of the few that does both sides. He's not this lefty or a righty. He just calls it as he sees it. Always been pretty fair that way. I got an opportunity to interview him years ago, maybe about 20 years ago. I got to talk with him for something, for a book I was trying to write. But Will Durst, great guy, and it's pretty cool that you, like I said, that you were around during that era. And did you ever get to meet Robin, and what was that like?
Oh, the only thing I could tell you is this other teacher I had who ran the mics, he was a character also, like that greasy guy. His name was Frank Kidder, and he created the San Francisco Comedy Outdoor Festival.
Right,
well,
yeah.
Frank Kidder had hair like Elvis, but he looked like Charles Manson to me. So whenever I got on stage, I'd say, Frank, you used to look, he also wore leisure suits. He was a character. So I'd say, Frank, you used to look like Elvis, but now you look like Charles Manson. And Charles Manson was unfortunately popular in those days. So it was something to say when you got on, something for me to say when I got on stage. Well, one day Robin came in and he said, Frank, and he made a joke about Frank looking like Charles Manson. Now, Robin's famous for stealing jokes. Stephen Pearl said he made money, because he'd asked for his money after he told the joke.
Right.
Anyway,
he took Stephen Pearl's persona, I think, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh, that's a comp. Oh my God, Stephen would be so happy they were best friends, but that would be so nice. Anyway, so I say it this way. On one hand, Frank looked like that, so he could have said Charles Manson, but because we used to do open mic and then leave the stage and Robin would, we'd slither down, Robin's here. I like to think he took my joke, but of course, Frank looked like Charles Manson, so maybe he just said it because he looked like Charles Manson. So that's in that way I met him, but I didn't, I never talked to him. There were people I talked to, but I was an open micer, and they would, not that they were snobby, but they in a different group.
Yeah, San Francisco, just like New York during the comedy boom in the 80s, was just such a great time for comedy. There was so many different types of acts coming out. It wasn't like there was no standard act. Everybody had their own thing, their own persona. They were just doing. It was just like open season. It was like the Wild West kind of thing. These comedians, like, you got Roseanne Barr's she's the housewife. You have Tim Allen's the tool guy. You have, this one is, what have you. Everybody kind of had a persona. You had what's his name doing the typewriter bit on his head. I forget his name, but you had all these comics at the time, so it was a wild time to be in comedy. So even as an open micer, you're around it, you're part of it.
Can I tell you a story you just reminded me of? Margaret Cho's parents had a building that we had an open mic in, and she used to do open mic with us, and she once said to us these words, I'm gonna make it.
That's cool. And she did
about it.
And she did. And yeah, do you keep in touch with any of them? Do you reach out and go, hey, remember me from
not her, but I do some of them.
Like Stephen Pearl, have you reached out to Stephen Pearl?
Very much, yeah. When I go to San Francisco, he loves the Beatles, so we stayed in touch. And then I brought him to see a Beatle band, and I brought him to the Beatles Love concert. That's I took him to my Beatle friends, and I took him. So he very much, because he's like a friend, and he has a friend who's in a blues band in Manhattan. So he came. I brought my pictures of me and the Beatles that I have. He loved looking at those. I'm glad you know Stephen. He's from the Five Towns, you know.
Yeah, he's a Long Island guy.
I tease him about being from such a snooty area.
Yeah, he's good friends with Benny Rizzuti, and so Benny set me up with an interview with him not too long ago. Yeah, about a year ago. It was during the pandemic. I got to talk with him, and I've always loved Stephen Pearl, and it's interesting when you find out some of the stuff, like how much of an influence he was on Robin Williams.
That's beautiful, because they were good friends, and
yeah,
he wanted Robin to write a preface for a book. I don't think he ever finished his book, but that's great that you knew that. And
yeah.
I'm glad you appreciate the Holy City Zoo. And as far as staying in touch, I reached out to a lot of them. And Kevin Meaney came to New York before he passed away, obviously. He was in New York, and I went to see him. And I went up to him and I said, I used to see you at the Holy City Zoo. Well, he welcomed me, he hugged me, he took a picture. And then his daughter does comedy at Gladys Simon's Club. So I know his daughter, Kate, very well.
That's awesome. Yeah, Kevin Meaney, Boston comic, but really earned his bones in that San Francisco scene over there. And then he was part of that, him, Pearl.
Then there was some writers who, were comics at the Holy City Zoo who you might not have known, who ended up being writers in LA. In fact, one of them just sent me 20 companies that buy greeting cards just yesterday, so that I could submit greeting cards. Because, Don, you could take jokes you wrote, and if you set them up right, they could be a card that you buy in the store.
Right, exactly.
I don't want everyone to do it because I'll have competition, but it's you don't have to draw any pictures. I sold one. I'm very proud of it.
Excellent. Well, can you share the one you sold?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. I could share it because I'm
awesome.
proud of it.
Yeah. This is great.
I can also show you a letter from Joan Rivers' office too.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
I didn't talk about that at all yet. Because the guy I'll do this first. So here's the card. It says, could you see it? It says, happy birthday to someone who's passing through the information age. And they show you like a Best Buy kind of store. And you open it up and it says, and heading for the inflammation age. And they show you an analgesic count or whatever that is. I meant it to be this, inflammation, like your bags on your eyes. I don't care. They gave me 100. So you get money and they give you cards, and it's good for your ego. And my friend in other cities could go to the store where they sell them and buy one. It's really,
that's great. Yeah, I want to get one. I want an autographed copy of it. And you know what, too? That card is very. We were just talking about that, the information age, right in the beginning of when we started talking.
Yes, and they like old, you think of, they let me use it on stage, whereas Joan Rivers, you sign a 6-page contract that you'll never utter the joke again. It's hers. He said I could use it. He said I could make copies at Staples for my friends after they stopped selling it. So I'm very proud of the card. But can I tell you about the Joan Rivers story?
Yeah, tell me the Joan Rivers.
So remember I said that the Barkers, he used to submit jokes to famous comics. And he told me, you just go to the library. There was a big green book, because there were books then. It was a reference book, and it had the comics managers. So you write to the manager, and I had a typing job then. I was like the secretary. So at my lunch hour, so I sent a query letter, and they wrote back, this is what Joan's using on Johnny Carson right now. Every day she had a new, what do you call it? Like Steve Colbert. Every day it's new, and Fallon and all of them.
Right.
So they needed
monologue.
They needed Liz Taylor insult jokes. So they needed jokes about this, and this. And a lot of it was Liz Taylor, unfortunately, the way she was so mean to her. And that's not my spirit. But so remember what a select typewriter was? It had you're pretty young, but it had a ball in it.
Yeah, the ball. Right.
At least it was electric, so it wasn't arduous. So at lunch hour, I just sat there and thought of, I didn't tell you this. I listened to her album that came out. Remember what an album was? And her album was called What Becomes of a Legend Most. So between watching her every night on Carson and listening to a record, I started to think like her. I started, like you said, Robin's like Stephen Pearl.
Right.
And I started to channel, like channel her, like what would Joan Rivers say, without even thinking. So before you knew it, when I was typing the jokes, I was just like thinking, what would she say about Liz Taylor? So one day I got a pink envelope in the mail. In those days, it wasn't like today where you get crazy stationery. To get a pink envelope and it had her return address, it was the highlight of my life.
Wow.
And people say, what'd you get? I could show you I framed it. It's not so much how much you make, because she's using your joke once and never using it again. Whereas Rodney Dangerfield, who they say gave $50, he could take that joke on the road for a year.
Right.
Joan Rivers, could she get everybody to get $1 million for a joke when she's going to use it once? So I defend that about how much I got. It's not about the money.
What was it? How much?
It was $10, and I sold 10, and it was just getting that envelope. And so then, Don, she told it, my friend Bob Reynolds, who I can't find anywhere, he used to tape the show so we could study her, and he taped her telling 2 of my jokes.
Wow.
And
do you have that?
Tape, and it's on a movie that I happen to be in with my senior center, and they show Joan Rivers telling the joke, and they show me telling the joke.
That's
so it's
awesome.
a miracle. That movie just came out, and it's free. It's on, well, it was free. It's on Peacock. You're
I'm gonna check it out.
Guy. You know what Peacock is?
Oh yeah, it's like another network, like another app network type of. We can watch a whole bunch of stuff.
It's NBC.
Right. I think that you're right. I just before definitely want to hear the joke and more about Joan Rivers, but I want to say too that I think you're absolutely right, and people watching this should know that it's not always about how much money you make from these things. It's about the experience, and it's about kind of getting validation when somebody like Joan Rivers likes your work, likes your joke, and then lets you know it, and then lets you know it by using it and her own voice and everything else. I think that is priceless. Those are things that you can't put a price tag on, whether it's $10, $1 million, it doesn't matter. The money is irrelevant. Money comes and goes, but that feeling that achieving that is incredible. And there's a million people that made $1 million, but there's only very few that wrote a joke for Joan Rivers.
Thank you. That's so sweet what you just said. Wow. Yeah. And being in this movie, we get reviews. It's a real movie, and there are reviews, and they could have been horrible, right? We got, from what I saw, and I look every day, we got 33 good reviews, and they even took like something that came out of my mouth. They have it in like newspaper, you know more about this than me, like and they quoted, one of the seniors said this. So that made me feel good too. That
nice.
Because we don't do stand-up in the class. It's like it's a senior center. Well, you don't want to hear all that, but it's just freewheel and improv, sitting down. The teacher throws us a concept, and they're seniors, like 88-year-olds. I don't feel like anyway.
Right. Well, you're definitely young at heart for sure. And yeah. And so now with Joan Rivers, okay, so she's doing your jokes, and you got to tell me what the jokes were. Now, was it just 1 or 2 jokes?
Well, 2 that we happened to tape, that Bob Reynolds, wherever you are, taped. It could have been more, but I used to have the list of the 10 jokes, and I do know another one. And I did sign it. I have a joke. I signed a contract that says I'll never utter it again, but she's dead, but her lawyer isn't.
It's okay. You're not telling it on a stand-up stage. You're just telling me something you wrote. So if he's watching, you're clear.
Well, that one was so dirty to come out of my mouth that I don't even tell my closest friends that one. But I'll tell you the one that's in the movie, Good Timing, because it's so funny. It bombed. I'll tell you first that it bombed, and the fact that it bombed, and she said it 3 times, is even better. Okay, so she comes out, and it's income tax day, 1986, let's say.
Right.
And remember the song, Let's Get Physical, Physical. So she comes out and she goes, it's income tax day, and my accountant has a sense of humor, and he's dancing around the office singing, let's get fiscal, fiscal. It's like fiscal year.
Nice.
So then she says it again. She goes, let's get fiscal, fiscal. And then she said it a 3rd time. She goes, let's get fiscal, fiscal. That was supposed to be a good joke. So I love it. And in the movie, the teacher got permission from Johnny Carson's estate to have her say it. And then I described what I just did. Then they show her the 2nd time and me. So it's really something. It's in the movie.
That's on the Peacock network.
Peacock.
Yeah, so people got to watch this. This is gonna be cool. Okay.
It was free, and now maybe because a few months have gone by, now it costs money to get Peacock, and some people have the station. It's called Good Timing with Joe Firestone, and that's nothing. She put me on Comedy Central with her. She
Wow.
she was a writer for Jimmy Fallon. She's the teacher of the senior center. She walked in, said, "I'm not working right now." Then the pandemic came, so I'm in the class, but it's from Manhattan, from a senior house where they eat lunch and they have painting class, and now we're in a friggin' movie. It's crazy.
That's awesome. See, you never you never know what's gonna.
You never know. And I put 2 comics I knew in the class because they're sitting home on Zoom too, and they're younger than the people in the class are in their like 80s or 90s, laying down, and we're like young at heart.
You're
But
the
anyway,
young kids, yeah.
I'll tell you the other joke Joan
Who-
Rivers told me. I don't know it exactly, but it went something like this. You know, in LA, everybody who gets married gets divorced. So I put my money in the Infidelity Savings Bank. You know, just like a
Nice.
regular joke you think of. Like lately, someone says, I'm in, what's that investment thing called? Anyway, forget it. I won't waste your time with that joke, but it's something that I just heard someone say they do for a living, and you just think,
That's what I was gonna say. As a joke writer, and you've been writing jokes probably since maybe even before the '80s, before you got really started doing open mics and stuff like that. But you're a funny person. You think funny. I mean, your last name is Witt. but here you go. And is the comedy? Is it always on? Are you always thinking? Are you always looking for the funny? Is it always looking for the joke?
that's a good question. I like to be taken seriously. You know, if I go to a funeral, I don't want to crack a joke, but I think funny things at funerals, but I don't say it. I don't have to be one of these people that everything I say has to be funny. I don't like to be known as that, and I'm not known as that, but I always think things.
How
Yeah,
does it work?
always.
Like, do you need a deadline to write jokes, or do you write jokes like every day? You just, oh, this is funny. Let me write this down.
What's funny at Rob Chaffee, I'm sure you know him. He has a class every day.
Yeah.
Six days a week for free that we go to, and it's 6 days a week, and it's like not like a drug in a bad way, but it's like Rob's at 6 a.m. tomorrow, you better go to bed, or Rob's at noon today, you missed it. Like
Right.
tonight it's
Right.
8 p.m. Notice I didn't say, are you free at 8? So anyway, he
Right.
also has done a half an hour a day where we just don't talk. He goes on Facebook and you just write, and he shows the people writing. Once I was in my pajamas, and there it is on Facebook. I mean, just from here down, but it's on
Right.
Facebook. It's still on there, and I'm wearing my pajamas. But it's a half an hour of silent, just writing, just what do you call that? Just
Just
coming out of your head.
yeah, just free form, just
Yeah.
writing, improv writing. Yeah, just
If
letting
you
it
just
flow.
write whatever you want to write. So I
Yeah.
sometimes will write out. I don't practice a lot. I'm really bad. I have a coach, you know, I have a comedy coach who I went and saw at Governor's and said she blew the room away. I want that. I'm a
Who-
retired teacher, so I said, you worked hard your whole life. She blew the room away. I want that. So she's my coach. I'm very lucky. Want
Who
me
is
to
it?
say her
Who is
name?
it? Yeah.
Vanessa
Who?
Hollingshead. Vanessa
Uh,
Hollingshead.
oh yeah. She does a lot of. She coaches a lot of
Well,
people.
I started telling people, it was one-on-one, and I started telling people before you knew it, Heather and her made a class in a company, you know, Heather has SOS now.
Right.
But it all started because I said, could you coach me? And then I told my friends about it. Heather formed a class. So now you even heard about it, like, oh, she coaches a lot of people, but it didn't start out that way. I just said, you know, not that I want to be her, but because she's so animated, she does accents. I'll never do as many accents. She's the
Right.
best.
Yeah.
Oh, she's really good. But I don't know what you asked me. I don't know what I answered you. Do I write every day? No. In fact, I don't rehearse, but
But I
because of
think with
Rob,
the Rob Chaffee thing, I think really helps push, and also what you're doing over there at the senior center is helping kind of, you know, keep the wheels spinning, keeping you know, that's what I meant by a deadline is like something to write for, you know, like you're not just writing jokes just for yourself, you're sharing them with people, and you have a group that's listening, and you're still out there, you're still doing stand-up, right? You're still out there on the
yeah, I
scene.
do. I go to Mike Dillon's, or you know, I go to Bringers a lot. I go to Manhattan. I go to Comic Strip, and I go on Zoom. But as far as writing a lot, Bruce is bless his heart, Bruce writes a lot and he practices and he'll say, today I'm not going on any Zoom. I'm going to sit and do XYZ. I go, Bruce, you're so disciplined. I think about a set when I'm driving to New Jersey. I go, don't you think you better start practicing in your head? You're there, you're almost over the bridge. That's how bad I am with practicing. Bruce takes different pieces and puts them together. And as a result, he and I have like an hour's work. Before Rob's, I had a few things. Ask Pat Marone. I used to go to his assisted living on my own every Monday. I had 3 things I did. And then I fooled around with the people. Now I have like an hour.
Right.
Thanks to Rob, because when you go on for your little jokes, you want to have something to say.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think it's great that you and Bruce and like Art Chill and there's like a whole group of you kind of
older people,
people that but you're out there and you're funny and you're doing it and to me it's an inspiration and of sorts.
For you young people like Don Sill, for example, with a little gray in his beard, just a little.
Yeah, I guess crossed over. I'm over the hill now. I just turned 50 over the summer, so I'm the big 50. But yeah, I think that that it is good because for me at 50, I feel like I'm an elder statesman sometimes, and also I still have my dreams that I want to accomplish. There's still things I want to do. I'm not done yet, and I still want to get out there and entertain people, and I see that fire never goes out. And that's what I mean. But that's what inspires me, to see that fire for creative people, for funny people lives on inside your soul. And age doesn't matter, So
that's very sweet. I, in the movie, Joe Firestone interviews you and she said, why do you do this? Or what's your goal? And I thought about it. Like, it's not like it's on my mind all the time. And I said, I want to kill. I want to, Vanessa knows, not that she's conceited, but I know Vanessa's going to walk out there and be a headliner and kill for an hour and people are going to hold their sides. I mean, I want to be that funny.
I think you wrote jokes for Joan Rivers. You are that funny. I think too. I think I see a little like swagger, that Joan swagger in you. I can't wait to see you live. You gotta tell me when you're performing it, and I'd love to come out and see it.
You'll be sorry you asked, because I have Evan Weiss' show. I'm going to MC, and then I have to fill that with people. And then the next night, I have another coach named George Saltz. He's 87, and he's in a movie that I'm in because it's about following him around. He won a contest last summer. He's 87. He just performed last night at Gladys Simon's. But yeah, so he's having a show. And he has a friend, 89. She has red hair, tattoos. She has cowboy boots. She's in the movie because they're so outrageous. They show her going down to in a bar. Her kids wanted to live in a home, and she calls it like Dusty Acres or something, and she won't go. So the movie's about them starting at 80. And it's really a good movie, but it's not for the public yet because it's still going to festivals. But I'm in it because he says, did you notice I had to grab onto the mic stand, meaning he didn't feel so well? So I said, of course, because I watch him so he doesn't fall. I said, of course I saw you, George. Do you want to call me when you get home? Because he was driving from Manhattan back to Ardsley, New York at that age, right? So I said, do you want to call me and make sure you got home okay? And he went, no, you'll read about me in the paper. So everyone in the theater at the festival laughed. Like, he made a mockery of me. No. So that was like an insult, but it was funny that everyone laughed.
Now, are you? Do you do any acting? Are you interested in acting and getting on the camera?
I'm really not interested in acting, but Gladys Simon from Gladys's Room, she recommended voiceover, and I did do. Bruce and I went to the Bronx to this guy's house, and he had those things they use to soundproof.
Oh yeah, on the wall.
It was in
right.
Those like that not
Right.
styrofoam.
It's like styrofoam. Yeah, it's soundproofing material. Yeah.
Was in his wife and his closet, and we just sat there and we played I played a Jewish mother. It was his grandmother who passed away from COVID, so it was an honor, and it was just like a small time thing that he did for a hobby. So we wrote voiceover artists on our resume now, because we went to this guy's. Nobody has to know what it is, but it's a cartoon. It's cute, and that's another thing I'm proud of, that I did that.
Yeah, this is great, man. I think this is great what you're doing, Helena. And also now, what do you think about the comedy scene? So you've seen one of the greatest comedy scenes in history, which was the 80s boom, San Francisco era. You might have been back and forth to New York and enjoyed some of the New York 80s boom. You maybe even went to LA while you were there and saw some of that. But compare that 80s boom comedy scene in San Francisco to today's scene on Long Island. How are the comedian? How does it all pan out? If you really had to go apples for apples here, what would you?
I really am not qualified to answer that. I could say the open micers that I see sometimes, I shouldn't even say too much about where it was. Five guys talked about what they were going to do in their bedroom under the covers, if you know what I'm talking about. 5 in a row. And then a woman did. I mean, here's my theory. You went to school for 12, I'm a school teacher, but you went to school for 12 years, and every day you learned about countries and history and math. And there's so many subjects to talk about on the planet. Do you have to talk about that one thing? 5 of them. And, you might talk about it too, but it bugs me that there's so much to talk about. It's just that one thing, 5 in a row.
I agree with you, and I think when you see 5 in a row, you start to realize it gets redundant by the 5th guy. It's no longer shock value. It's no longer funny. It's no longer clever, it's no longer clever or funny or have shock value after the first guy is halfway through his set. It's just old style shock comedy. It's Andrew Dice Clay, and we don't. That's not. It's been done. It's been there, done that, and all that good stuff. I think now people have to definitely be more creative and insightful. There's enough in the world today to grab from. There's so much going on. Where you?
How about just from sitting in school for 12 years every day?
Yeah,
Today
exactly.
we're going to learn about this and this and this and this and this.
There's so much more
in that way, Don. I'm an old-fashioned person. Like, I could be dirty. If you hire me right now, I once said this to Rick Rizzuto's wife, you have a dirty show, you want me in it? I'm able to do that. I have the wherewithal to do it. But am I interested in that kind of detail? No.
For me, it doesn't, if it's clean, dirty, or what have you. For me, I just want it to be clever. I just want the jokes to be well written and well crafted out, not lazy, not just like, oh, I was on porno and you notice that everybody's this incest in porno. That's a whole.
And then my mother came in. How many of them? They go back to a childhood scenario, which you could do in other subjects. Other things happen in your childhood besides your mother walking in your bedroom.
Right. I think a lot of newer, younger comics, open mic level guys and girls, when they come out, they want to instantly be Dave Chappelle. They want to instantly be Louis C.K. But they don't realize that the years it took to craft those people, like Louis C.K. didn't just happen overnight. That guy's been doing stand-up comedy since like the late 70s. Dave Chappelle's been doing stand-up comedy since he was like 15 years old in DC and stuff.
And Bobby Collins too.
Yeah. And these are guys that have crafted and worked their whole career, years and years and years to get to this level of where they were. If you watch any of their early stuff, it's not great. But for these young guys to come out and think that they're going to be that on at Joe Schmo bar and grill, in between commercials of the baseball game. If you think you're going to be that, no. So I suggest always to young comedians, open mic level people, is craft your jokes, right? Clean, crafty jokes, not necessarily clean. in the clean dirty sense, but clean as if well crafted clean. Like write them out. Make sure you have a good set, a set that flows, a tight 5 minutes that you could be proud of, and then build from that. And then when you start, if you're, if dirty is your thing, then you take that clever abilities and you work it into that. And I think that's how you do it. Guys like that, like you said, they're a dime a dozen. There's 5 of them at your open mic, and so I said,
it was amazing to me because I make a big fuss about that. Do you know Tim Thompson?
I know of Tim Thompson. I never met him. I think he's a very funny guy, though. I've seen a lot of sketch comedy
he goes to Rob's. He goes to Rob's and he goes in our breakout rooms and he's so genius. I think he's ingenious and he helps us. He's not beneath helping us, because we go to a breakout room. Let's say you come with a joke. Rob suggests you come with one joke. So he'll help you. And then he has a turn. He's just with us. He's just equal. And yet on Wednesday night, we have a make-believe, like a Steve Colbert show, where we look at, Tim picks out news stories that are really in the news, even if they're crazy. And then we write him a monologue, and then we do it every Wednesday. And yeah, I think he's so good. Some people, Don, it's marketing. There's a girl, I won't even mention her name. She's really funny, so she doesn't fit this category, but I want to give certain people shout outs who've only been doing it since the pandemic, and they're featuring in Valley Forge already. And I said to her, God bless you. You're that funny that you're already featuring.
Yeah.
Since
some people.
The pandemic, are you kidding me?
And that's a tough time to start. When you're Zooming, when you're doing your comedy through Zoom, when you don't really have an audience interaction that much, you're not feeling the vibe as much. You might be able to see them in little boxes, but you're not like, being able to feed off of the energy or anything. So to learn,
I happen to like Zoom, but don't you think a lot of it's in your head? Like if you say, oh, it's because of this. It's because they're too young. It's because I'm Jew. It's because I'm on Long Island. I mean, people have the greatest excuses. How about somebody who made it in 2 years and they're at Valley Forge? Do you think maybe it has something to do with her mindset?
Very, very true. Yes, Helaine. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that it is about the work and work ethic at the end of the day. And opportunity is not going to come knocking on your door. You got to go out and knock on it, and that's how you make it. The harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
I want to say Stephen Pearl, as genius as he is, he could be retired from it already, and yet that's a good example. Someone of his talent. He lives in Vegas now,
Yeah, he's in Vegas, and I know Linda.
Marcus Smith.
Yeah, Linda Marcus Smith was living.
She's my best friend.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. I love Linda, and they were like roommates for a little bit.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I introduced. Well, she met her on, but yeah, and that's why we took them, to the shows. But don't you think it works the opposite way? You could be that good and just not a marketing type person.
Oh, I think there's so many like that goes in all the arts, really. There's so many super talented people that get overlooked or just there is a little bit of luck to it, kind of like a roulette wheel, where some people get hit that and other people just don't. And Stephen Pearl's a perfect example. Like we said, he's the guy that inspired and influenced Robin Williams. To me, in my opinion, Rob Williams took some of his persona, some of that energy that Stephen Pearl was on stage in those early days, especially. He was just going on, and he would ramble and all that stuff, and that kind of was it that that flow of consciousness, just stream of consciousness. I see Steve Pearl had that. Rob Williams certainly had that. Rob Williams is a genius. I'm not taking anything away from Rob Williams. I'm just saying that Stephen Pearl is a super talented guy, had an opportunity, I think in the 80s. He was starting to pop, but that's what happens. So many great comedians, so many great artists.
I want to say one thing about Stephen that's amazing. He could do the same. He did bring us with him in Vegas too. He could do the same jokes and nobody could understand it. reference to something from the 60s or the 70s, and he doesn't care, and it's still hysterical. That's interesting that he does. Number one, he could do the same material for 40 years, and two, he could talk about something you don't even know what he's talking about.
They say, there's a comedian and a comic, and a comedian says funny things and a comic says things funny. So wow. I think so. Stephen Pearl just has a knack for whatever he says or does. It's always funny. He's just one of those guys. He has that ability. I think even if he tries to be serious, people are gonna laugh at him. He's like, no, seriously, I got robbed. I think you start laughing. But yeah, I think that's super cool. I didn't realize you had such a strong connection to the San Francisco scene.
Because of the Beatles and the comedy with Stephen, and I found him on Facebook after I knew him. And that, again, you asked if I know people from the Holy City Zoo. I reconnected when I saw them on Facebook. That's how it happened. I want to tell you, can I tell you another cute story?
Sure.
Okay, I knew a comic from the open mics at the zoo, and my cousin thought of a joke, and she said it to me. I did it on stage. Someone else did it on stage. This guy wrote on Facebook. I remember this guy died. I'm not using names. And this guy said, I'll never forget how he used to say, and he said a quote that came out of my cousin's mouth that I used. Then this other guy used it. And then it came out of this comic on Facebook. Oh, I'll never forget how so-and-so. Hey, my cousin thought of that joke.
See that? That's awesome. And
we
you were there
about stealing. Oh, go ahead. You're leading.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were there through the Haight-Ashbury times too. I mean, you were in San Francisco like the greatest times.
Well, that's why I went. I went because my friends said, you're gonna have a flower in your hair. In New York, laid me off. I was a teacher for 5 minutes before the layoff, and then I had a marriage that broke up. So my friends all were going to San Francisco with flowers in their hair. So tune in, turn on, drop out.
There you go, Tim Leary. Excellent. Well, yeah. So, Helaine, this is great, and you're going to be. Tell everybody again where they can find that show on Peacock that you're on there. It's a documentary for Joan.
Yeah. Okay. So Peacock is like you said, an app. It's a subsidiary of NBC. And now the movie cost a few bucks, just like the Beatles on Disney cost a few bucks to watch. So it's called Good Timing. And it has a name, Good Timing, with Joe Firestone. But on Peacock, it's just Good Timing. And then, so then that Joan Rivers thing is there. And then I'll be at Evan Weiss's show on the 19th in Greenwich Village. At like 6 o'clock, I'm going to MC. I'd love for all my friends to be in the audience. Sometimes I just pay for all my friends to come if they have money. I have some friends who just can't come out.
Right.
And I want to talk a little about stealing jokes. Do you want to tell me because you have a lot of good philosophies on different subjects. I'd like to hear what you have to say about, by coincidence it's stolen, or you go back to someone and say, by the way, I do that joke, because it happened in your interview show with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
remember I came back and said I want to give a.
Oh, right. I think that there's parallel thinking. I think so. Like let's just say stuff going on in the news today, that there might be, 5 people that come up with the same joke based on, what's going on. Like, it could be a Biden joke, or it could be a Trump joke, whatever it is, whatever's going on in the world. And I think that's parallel thinking. So there's going to be, we're all looking for the funny, we're all looking for the punchline. So if I think there's a lot of that. Then I think in some cases when somebody blatantly steals a joke, I think that is the true hack and the true, and that's what I love about comedy and comedians, is that we police ourselves. So if I'm at a club and you're not there, but I hear somebody tell you a joke, I'll text you, hey, Helaine, if somebody's using your joke, and then you confront that person. Now I heard stories with Robin Williams that he took somebody's joke, and that person, I don't know if it was Steve Pearl or somebody else.
Yeah, he went to the manager and asked for money.
Yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
No, that in this story, and I heard this one secondhand. I don't know if it's true. I never read it in a book or anything, but they were backstage at a club and they saw Robin Williams, and that comic went over to him, grabbed Robin, put him up against the wall, and then said, "You stole my jokes." And he goes, "Which joke was it?" And he told him the joke, and then he goes, "All right, hold on a second, hold on." And he pulled out his checkbook and he wrote the check out, and he goes, "Now I didn't steal your joke, I bought it. Now you're my writer." And he goes, "You're now my joke writer." So Robin played that one cool. I don't think Robin's a hack, though. I think with Robin's case, he's thinking so fast and he's just pulling from everywhere. So punchlines just come out of everything he heard, whether it was on TV, another stand-up, a street joke, whatever. It's all just coming out. So I don't think with Robin, it doesn't really apply, And then also when you look back at Milton Berle era. Milton Berle is another famous joke thief, but back then it wasn't bad. A lot of comedians shared jokes. There was no taboo about it then. So like Bob Hope, if he would go up before Milton, he would do Milton's set just to throw Milton off, and then leave Milton in the lurch. But it's one of those things. It's hard to prove sometimes. You look at Carlos Mencia, Joe Rogan. I don't know if you knew that whole battle. Dane Cook, Louis C.K. Even Long Island's own Amy Schumer is known to steal a bunch of jokes.
With Wendy Liebman's husband just railed at her. Is that a good verb? Railed?
Yeah,
at her on the Facebook about it.
Yeah. And then once these people get called out, they disappear. You don't see them as much anymore. So, but what's your take on it? What do you think about it?
My problem is we overlap. We go to Rob 6 days a week. So if someone talks about a Barbie doll, I'll remember that when I was a teacher, I was in Green Acres Mall once and with a teacher's little granddaughter, and I went, "Look, a Jewish American Princess Barbie," So it's like, so when Rob says do one joke for your 8 minutes, and we'll work on it with you. So right away, I'm talking about Barbie dolls. Now that person might have their whole set about Barbies. I come on at Mike Dillon's, I'm making up, but this could happen.
Right.
Go in the little room and I'm doing a joke about Barbie when she thought of it. Now that's not the same as stealing. Then you'll have someone who says a joke and Rob has a rule and it's wonderful. It has integrity. He says, if it's the other person's turn and you offer them something, you're not allowed to say, "Oh, I want that back." You just gave it. It's that person's turn because we each get 8 minutes. It's their turn. It came out of your mouth. If you don't want that to happen, you're going to have to think, because things have happened like that and it caused problems. So that's a little of the robbing problem. The other robbing problem is people don't know they stole.
Right.
Now, everyone's talking about dating with the single man at McDonald's. So if 3 people are doing that at Rob's, we might overlap and we might not. And then the person says, "I didn't say that," or "I didn't come out with that." Yeah, you did.
Right. Yeah, it all comes down to parallel thinking a lot of the time, because if somebody throws out a topic, like I said, everybody's thinking for the punchline. So, you're going to come up with, if it's like the topic is McDonald's, you're going to start coming up with all these punchlines that, and some people are going to have the same ones. Not everybody's thinking outside the box. A lot of people will, that's why they call it in the box and then outside the box. Is most people are thinking in here, they're not thinking out there.
Yes.
So,
but like seniors, I'll talk about, Bruce has a new joke about, what do you call them? Crow's feet. Now, my crow's feet joke that I wrote 40 billion years ago is totally different than Bruce's, but I forgot about mine till I heard him. Now I'm going to bring mine back. It's not the same joke, but in the class, we were in 2 separate rooms. One of the people in my room said a joke. I said, "That's Bruce's exact joke." He didn't know. It was about the UPS man. Bruce has a bit about the UPS man. And then he says something out. Here's a perfect example. "What can Brown do for me?" That's a slogan from UPS. That wasn't taken in, for any reason from Bruce. That's a slogan.
Right.
If you're going to talk about UPS, he talks about UPS. What does Brown do for me is a total innocent, not stealing a joke.
I agree. And that's, to me, that's just parallel thinking. That's, that's
Right.
people, like you said, if it's a certain topic that comes up, there's going to be punchlines that hit you in the face. They're obvious. Like what does Brown do for me? It's just, there's so many
A
things you can do.
slogan
Yeah,
that they use. But you know what, Don? Their two jokes were completely different and it was perfect. It's just, you could say, hey, you can't say that. Bruce says it. No, his joke, the other guy's joke was totally different.
I remember, back in the day, I was living in Raleigh. I was going to Good Nights Comedy Club a lot, and I would see the local comics there. At the time, the Prius, that car, that was a huge joke, and there was like so many comics that was joking about this Prius, and but they were all different jokes, but it was all about the freaking Prius. So I remember the doorman was also, his name was Kenny, I forget his last name, but he was a funny guy. He was friend of mine at the time, and he was the doorman, but he also emceed. So he went up and he emceed, and he closed that bit out with a Prius joke. So the headliner came on. I forget who the heck the headliner was. Touring act, big name guy. He was pissed after the show. He's like, I have a whole bit on Prius, and you freaking, and it's like, but it's two different things. It was two different punchlines. Because the fact that the car was called the Prius is funny in and of itself, just that word. So, but there are little taboos and nuances, and people are weird about certain things. But to your point, Prius, if I have a joke about Prius, you have a joke about a Prius. But neither one of us stole from each other. We just both have jokes about a Prius.
Yeah, I get it. Could I tell you a cute story about the Jay Leno show?
Yeah.
Well, years ago, we used to be allowed to send jokes to Jay Leno, and my older brother, who passed away since then, always liked to write jokes with me. Not that we did it often. He lived in Texas. So anyway, he once said, you know what, Helaine? Oh, you were allowed to fax in the joke. You'd hear the news in the morning. They were in California, so you were 3 hours ahead of the curve. And he thought of a joke of the judge who said about with
OJ?
No, the one with Clarence Thomas, with Hill.
Oh, yeah, Anita Hill. Yeah.
So it came out that Clarence Thomas smoked pot in college. So one of us had this joke, and one of them was Jay Leno's joke, and one was my brother's joke. So one was, Clarence Thomas admitted he smoked pot in college. So one of the jokes was that would explain the potato chip, the empty potato chip bag in his garbage can. Now, the truth is that wasn't today. That was years ago, but I just thought of that now. Right. The other fun was that would explain the Grateful Dead t-shirt under his robe. My brother said, Helaine, the reason they're not keeping our joke is they don't want to lose their job. Well, true, I have indeed. A letter on my wall that says they're no longer accepting jokes for Jay Leno. Helen Kushner, she I think died since then, but he no longer accepted jokes. Did you hear the rule about Saturday Night Live? They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to accept scenario ideas you have, because then people say, "Oh, they took my idea."
Well, that's what happened. SNL has a history of doing that. You talk about joke thievery and stuff like that. They would actually, their writers used to go to comedy clubs. And there's a story of, I think it was Jay Moore, actually stole a joke from Rick Shapiro. So stole a whole premise and turned it into a bit on the show. And Rick Shapiro sued him and won.
Wow, that is so cool. My friend Debbie said she saw a writer. They said, hey, see that lady over there? She's a writer, and she was taking notes. That's disgusting. Wow.
Yeah. And I think they've stopped since then because they were smeared a few times for doing that. And I think the Jay Moore incident was the biggest one that hit, and it hit the comedy scene. And you start losing the comedy scene. Yeah, if the comedians start turning against the show, then and you're a comedy show, then it's not good. But
I heard they do take the news. What is their news called? I should know by now. Their news that they have. Right. You're allowed to submit, but you're not allowed to submit ideas.
Oh, we can submit jokes, straight up jokes.
I
Oh, no.
heard, good question. I don't know enough about it, but I heard you're allowed to submit to the news.
Oh, that's cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
But that was funny with my brother with the pot. I mean, he said that's why they don't want to hours because, oh, and once my brother said it was the Olympics and he said, someone's sitting on the couch going, I only won the bronze. You're the third fastest person on the friggin' planet, okay? What are you crying about? And then something like that happened on the show for real.
That's
So my
great.
brother thought they took our facts and they didn't give us credit. A lot of people think people steal, even these greeting cards. Who's to say they're going to reject mine and maybe they sell it to their subsidiary? But I don't believe, I'm not worried about it.
Well, you got to send me one of those cards, Helaine, and I want
What's
to
your
sign.
address? You can tell me privately.
Okay, I will definitely tell you in a minute. But I just want to say thanks again for taking the time to be
Oh, are
on the
you kidding?
show
I don't do anything.
and have
Kidding.
this DONversation with me. This was great, and this will be running next Wednesday. But tell everybody where they could find you and see you. Do you have a website, a Facebook page, a Instagram?
Yeah, mostly just do Facebook. I have 2 pages. They threw me off once. Maybe it was either because I went to talk to a famous person. Remember years ago, they'd say, do you know this person?
Right.
I don't know why they threw me up, but I ended up making another one. I made 2 pages,
All right.
but it's just
Excellent.
Helaine Witt on Facebook, and I'll say where I'm going to be.
All right. Well, Helaine, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us here. It's been a pleasure. Everybody check out Helaine Witt and check out her cameo on the Peacock Network with
Oh, it's not a cameo. We're all equal there, 16 of
yeah.
us.
Yeah, good. It's called Good Timing. Check it out. It's on Peacock and you'll see
Thank you.
Helaine Witt. Helaine, thank you so much.
I didn't mean to sound conceited when I said it wasn't a cameo.